Welcome to 2 Cents Worth. I am your host, Ryan DeFaber. Today, we're talking about summer, I guess you call it bucket list, or just summer trips or things that I would want to do during the summertime. Since we are in the middle of the summer, I was watching Wimbledon the last couple of days, and I was watching the MLB All-Star Game and Home Run Derby, and I got to thinking, what would be some fun stuff to do during the summer that maybe we don't do normally, or, with your spouse, with your friends, or even with your kids and family, obviously. So that's what we're going to go over today. So some of them might be more bucket list type things. Others might be more around, you could probably do them, especially where I live on the East Coast. If I'm talking about, baseball, one of them is going to be a Major League Baseball road trip, maybe a week or 10-day or 2-week road trip. Now, if you know anything about me, I absolutely hate driving. It drives me absolutely insane. More than a couple hours, I don't really want to do it. But if there's, I'm willing to make that sacrifice, maybe not put all the mileage on my car, but maybe rent a car and do it. But, on the East Coast, you can get to quite a few places in a lot of games rather easily. West Coast, it's a lot more difficult than the East Coast. You have the Northeast alone. You could, for me, being in Charlotte, I could fly up to Boston, right? And I could and you could rent a car and basically come back down the East Coast, and you can hit up a Red Sox game, a Mets game, a Yankee game, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the Nationals. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 games right there, 7 different stadiums that you could do that the kids would have fun with. And you could arguably even go out to Cleveland. If you're out near Pittsburgh, to Cleveland's not that far of a ride. And then maybe hit Cincinnati, so there's 9. So, you could map it all out and do that. You could do a Midwest one where you could, Midwest and even Canada, start in Toronto to Detroit, Cubs, Milwaukee, Twins, White Sox, Cardinals, Royals, Reds, Cleveland, fly home. I think for me, what I would do is probably find a destination to fly to and a destination to fly home from. But maybe that. You could also do a California one. Lindsay and I thought about that a couple years ago for our spring break trip, would be to fly out to San Francisco, catch an Oakland Athletics game before they move to Las Vegas. Any Oakland fans, I'm sorry. That hurts. I understand. Try and get your owner out. I don't know what to tell you. Try and also get the city to actually get you a stadium and help out. I don't know what else to tell you. But if you're going to California, fly into San Francisco, make sure, Oakland and San Francisco are playing home games that week. You can knock those 2 out, then go down the coast, and you could get then the Dodgers and the Angels in Los Angeles, and then finish your trip in San Diego, fly home. So right there, you can get 5 games in. Or, now again, this is summer, so, I do mention, Major League Baseball road trip type thing. If summer's not, feasible for you, and maybe it's spring break, I went to a spring training game in Arizona, and I will tell you, between Florida and Arizona, also having a friend who's played in both the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League. The Grapefruit League is the spring training for the teams that go to spring training in Florida versus the teams that go to spring training in Arizona. Every team in the Arizona area is all within Phoenix. So the farthest road trip for them is like an hour, right? Whereas in Florida, you could be on a bus or whatever for these players, a couple hours, 4 or 5 hours, to play teams on the east coast of Florida all the way up on the west coast into the Gulf side of Florida. So if it's a spring break trip and you have spring break during spring training, go to Arizona. I caught a game there. A lot of the teams share stadiums. You could get quite a few games in and stay in the Phoenix area for a week to 10 days and have an awesome time. So a summer trip for me, and I know I kind of just came out right of the gate out of this, but the topic of this really started from me watching Wimbledon, and I remember watching Wimbledon as a kid in the summertime, and it's still, for me as not a avid tennis fan, but somebody that watches tennis and can follow along and watch a match, I always enjoyed, of all their big majors, you have the Australian Open, which I never really got into because obviously it's in Australia. That's a long time difference, is ridiculous for us here in the U.S. So really getting into it, you got to be a huge tennis fan. So Australia Open, not so much. The French Open, no, not really. Wimbledon and the U.S. Open are the two that I would definitely put on a summer trip or even a maybe even a bucket list type thing. So that's what kind of got me started. And then I'm thinking about a major league trip. I was just in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago for work, and I was able to hit up a Pirates game. Awesome stadium, cool little surrounding, a lot of good bars around there. So that was I was trying to think. I was like, hey, that. And it's an easy flight. From Charlotte to Pittsburgh, it's a 58-minute flight. So you can certainly make a trip up there. And anywhere really on the East Coast from Charlotte Airport for us is very easy because all these airports, Charlotte is an American Airlines hub. They have direct flights everywhere. Or, going back to the baseball stuff, you could even start, if you wanted, you could start all the way up in the Northeast and make your way around the Northeast, maybe then fly down to Miami, get a Marlins game, drive up to Tampa, catch a Rays game, and then fly home. This is Charlotte. This could be anywhere, though. I'm looking at the map. The majority of the teams are in the Northeast and central part of the country. The West, it's spread out. It'd be a lot harder. You're flying places, and you're taking a while. But I thought it would be something to talk about. Pretty cool, I think, if you have kids that are into baseball, or if you yourself are into baseball, a Major League Baseball road trip would be pretty cool. And then also watching the All-Star Game. If that's not possible and there's an All-Star Game maybe near you or in a stadium or city that you want to visit during the summertime, it's right after 4th of July. So you get to celebrate that holiday. And if you didn't hear my podcast last week about how awesome 4th of July is, go check that out. But you can go and do that, right? So this year it's in Seattle. My brother lives out in Seattle. I hope maybe I don't know what the city's like around that time with the All-Star break and everything, but I'm sure it was buzzing, right? If you go into downtown or near the stadium, I'm sure there was a lot of things going on. So if you want to go and hit up a city, and go check out the All-Star Game and go check out the festivities for a couple of days. You have the Celebrity Game on Sunday. Is usually how they do it. And then Monday you have the Home Run Derby, which is awesome. So much fun. We were watching it with the kids, and they were enjoying it. The 10 and 7-year-old this week, we're loving it. And then, maybe find that out. And then, and then you have Tuesday is the All-Star Game. So you can make it really a long weekend. You can fly in somewhere on either Friday or Saturday, wherever the city is that's hosting the All-Star Game, Friday or Saturday, explore Saturday and Sunday, and some cases maybe even catch a game before the All-Star Game if they're playing in town that week, the team that's hosting. And then you have the Celebrity Game Sunday, you have the game on Monday, the Home Run Derby on Monday, and the game on Tuesday. Fly home Wednesday. You have a little short trip, long trip, but it could be a summer trip for you. So that's one thing. Going back to tennis, Wimbledon. Now that's obviously a little more dedication. You got to get tickets to go to another country. Make sure your passports are up to date. You're going to London. If I was to do Wimbledon, obviously I would wrap that into a London trip or even an England trip and just make that, a week, 10 days, 14 days, whatever it might be. Probably a week to 10 days. I would say Wimbledon obviously is a bucket list for me, but for my kids and also for myself, a soccer game or football, for those of you listening in Europe and elsewhere in the world, a football game. We're Manchester United fans. I know, hate me, whatever, love me, I don't care. Manchester United through and through. I would love to go to a Manchester United game at Old Trafford. Go do that. So Wimbledon obviously wouldn't work. The time frames don't match up. So, maybe we have to do 2 England trips. Horrible idea. I know. It sounds terrible. Kidding. But the bucket list there would be Wimbledon. Go and see that. You have the royalty there, the history, the fact that they're playing on grass, the Old England Club, all these things that go into it. The fact that Wimbledon is a neighborhood, so you're just walking through this neighborhood, and all of a sudden this massive tennis complex that hosts arguably the greatest tournament in tennis. I definitely would want to do that and go and experience it and enjoy that part of London as well as other areas of London, and then maybe come back at another time and do a Manchester United game and explore different parts of the UK. You have the northern northwest part of England where Manchester United is, Liverpool, that type of area, and experience that. And obviously take a train, can go London to Manchester in just a few hours. That is one thing I will say about Europe and versus the U.S. I mentioned the baseball stuff at baseball games. Obviously, it's driving, it's flying. In Europe, you can get to places quite quickly by train, which is fantastic. Great for them. So if you have England or anything in Europe on your bucket list for a summer trip, obviously you have that option. But for me, Wimbledon, maybe the U.S. Open later in the summer. The kids are back in school, but you can still do that on a weekend. For us, flight to New York, less than 2-hour flight. Go and do that. The kids, I think, would enjoy that. Baseball's still going on, so you could still get a Mets game in. You can still get a Yankees game in. So, again, just summer trips. That's kind of what I was thinking. Just different types of things that involve sports, right? If you're not into sports, I can't believe you've been listening for the last 13 plus minutes to this, because you're probably sitting there going, I don't get what this guy's talking about. The places sound cool. Maybe the road trip stuff sounds cool to you, but the games and the tennis and, because that's really what's going on in the summer. If you think about sports, it's baseball and it's tennis. And for us here in the U.S., there's MLS soccer going on. So you can make an MLS soccer trip somewhere. But let's see real quick. I'll pull it up. MLB 2024 All-Star Game. Let's see where that's going to be. The 2024 All-Star Game is going to be in Arlington, Texas. So Dallas. So for anyone listening, if you want to go visit Dallas-Fort Worth area for any reason in the summertime, next year, Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas is hosting. The Rangers are the host. So, book it now. Mark it down on your calendar that next July you want to go to Dallas, Texas, or the Dallas Metroplex, Fort Worth area, and go and explore that. I go there for business. It's a large place, lots to do. You have 2 cities basically right next to each other, and you can enjoy what Dallas and that greater area has to offer. Other things I was thinking, outside of baseball, you have golf, right? a bucket list golf trip with either your friends or family. And it happens every single year, and it happens this week every single year. And the reason I know that is because my youngest son was born this week, and in the hospital when he was born, we were watching it, the Open Championship. So, going back to Wimbledon, you can wrap Wimbledon in with the Open Championship for golf because it's held in the UK every single year at this same week, the same week that is Wimbledon is being held. You can do Wimbledon and you can do the Open Championship. So you could get couples together. This could be a couples trip. This could be a family trip. This could be a friends trip. You know, if you have friends that are into tennis too. For instance, I saw the other day. Now, granted, they're golfers. They're already there in the UK because they are playing in the Open Championship, but they're also friends. It was Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and Ricky Fowler enjoying Wimbledon, getting dressed up, you know, mixing with the crowd, and getting to enjoy that sport. And then they're going to go to Royal Liverpool, I think is the host this year, Royal Liverpool, and play in the Open Championship starting this week. So there you go. I that totally kind of blanked on me for a second until I just realized Wimbledon and the Open Championship are held at the same time in England every single year. There's a trip right there for you. A nice summer trip, Wimbledon, the Open Championship. You have an MLB road trip. You have an MLB maybe all-star long weekend. You have the U.S. Open for tennis mixed in with maybe a Mets and a Yankee game because that's what's going on at that point in time. And actually, correct me if I am wrong, which I don't think I am. I'm going to pull this up right now. So give me a second while I look through. And even I want to say that the NFL also is the same. It's preseason. Okay, you got preseason going on during the U.S. Open in the New York area. So I was going to say maybe you could even get a Giants or a Jets game in. But I believe it is just preseason. The week one is not until September 7th, and I believe for tennis, the U.S. Open is not until I think it's over by then. I'm going to pull it up, making sure. U.S. Open. Oh no, hey, okay. August 20th to September 11th. The U.S. Open. You could do the U.S. Open. You could do a Yankee or Met game, and you could do a Giant or Jet game if they all kind of work out. There you go. There's another trip for you. If you have the opportunity to do that, there's your trip to New York during the late summer. I've been to New York during the U.S. Open. It is really cool. I was there for work, and I remember working out in the hotel that I was in. I was in Midtown, Midtown East, and I'm in the hotel, and I'm in the gym, and the gym is, a couple floors up, but it's, 360 of the windows, and I'm looking down. You're seeing all the cars and the players getting out and going into their hotels, and they're staying, and I want to say maybe one or two players were staying in the hotel I was and sitting at the bar and seeing the people that were going to the U.S. Open that had come in from out of town. It's just a buzz, right? It's something cool. So for me, those are some of the trips that, I would be looking at for, maybe something to do in the near future, something to do next summer, something to do in the next couple of years, right? Obviously, the Wimbledon and the Open Championship from a fiscal point of view would be probably the most, considering obviously for us in the U.S. flying out there to England costs a little more than it does for us to fly up to New York or anywhere else in the U.S. for that matter to go and see those things. But that got me thinking this week was watching Wimbledon and going, what would be some fun sport-related trips that you could do during the summer? Because really here in the U.S., like I mentioned, it's baseball, it's MLS, those are your main sports. You have the WNBA. I'm not a WNBA fan, but it is there. You have the NBA Summer League in Vegas, so you could make a Vegas trip if you're big in the NBA and you want to explore Vegas as well as some NBA games and watch the rookies and some guys trying to make the rosters play in the summer league. You could do that. But for me, baseball, tennis, golf, those would be fun trips to do as couples, with your kids, with just your significant other, whatever it might be. Now, further bucket list trips, and I'll get into these on another episode, maybe next week or the following week. I am about to turn 39 in a couple weeks, so I am going to talk about that, where I am physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, who I am at 39, and what do I want to accomplish in the coming year. So that's going to be an upcoming episode. But, some things to think about for me: bucket list trips, bucket list places, not actual experiences. I kind of just went through some of that right there where, I was talking about Manchester United games, the Open Championship, Wimbledon, US Open, those types of things, but more so trips, places. Europe in general is on my bucket list. A handful of countries I certainly want to hit up. Those might have to be multiple trips to get that done, but I certainly want to do that. In the U.S., my wife grew up in Florida and has never been to the Keys. I've never been to the Keys, so I certainly want to look at that and see what that is all about. Southern California, want to definitely get to San Diego. That part of the country, San Diego, up to L.A., Palm Springs, all that Southern California has to offer. Australia and New Zealand, I think, would be an incredible trip to kind of experience that in those two areas. And then the last place would be the UAE, the Middle East. I would definitely want to see, Dubai and that whole area and what it is and what the culture's like and what it's like to live there and experience that. So those will be some trips that I'll talk about in an upcoming episode. But just for you guys to nibble on, what would be some of your trips that you would want to do during the summer? We do normally a beach trip for a week and then, a weekend here or there somewhere else, right? So my wife did a girls trip. We're going to do a trip together, Lindsay and I, later in the summer. And then my brother's coming into town and we're going to do some stuff with them and their family as well. So, what are some trips that you would want to do during the summer or even spring break? Like I mentioned, spring break could be something that you can get in spring training games, if it works out for your schedule and those types of things. So, as always, I appreciate you listening. As always, I appreciate if you share this with others. If you share it on any social media, like it, review it on Apple. Maybe Spotify can review it. You can review it there as well. I'm not sure. But as always, I appreciate you listening to me. This is 2 Cents Worth. I am your host, Ryan DeFaber. Have a great day.